my mom had moved into apartments down the street. I knew this was God's way of telling me to slowly let go of her, but I wasn't ready. We would visit her sometimes, but it wasn't very often. A couple months later, she came by the house to say goodbye to everybody. I was the last one, and when she said goodbye to me, she had told me that she loved me and to focus on what I believed in. At school, I felt worthless and alone. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I distanced myself from teachers and everything, and I said to God, this is it, isn't it? My parents' divorce hurt me so bad to where I almost gave up. But God had shown me there was a better and bigger way. I remember one day I went to the store with a friend of mine. I watched as the family was so close. They would take pictures together and hug each other. The mom had paid for money for the little kids to buy pumpkins to carve for Halloween. I was so angry knowing that my mom had never been there for me like that. She had never been for my family. She had never paid for the things that would make me happy, like carving pumpkins. I remember coming home one night, and I had gone on my knees and I said, God, why me? And all he said to me was, you are not alone. 2 years later, my dad had got married to a woman named Chandra. She had 2 kids of her own named Heidi and Ben. Chandra brought her family closer than ever, and I knew through this, God was there. God has shown me that the people will leave your life, but he is eternal. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for God goes with you, and he will never leave you or forsake you. The next story is about a friend of mine. I had walked into health class. It was a new trimester, so I didn't know anybody. She had asked me to sit by her and got to know her. Her name was Jasmine. She was one of the outgoing people I've ever met. She was so happy and always made jokes about the health teacher and the videos we watched. We would sit together at lunch and talk about things that only we could understand. She was someone I trusted and relied on. February 20th, 2017. It was Monday. I walked in my first period class, PE, and everybody was holding each other and crying. I quickly ran over to the teacher and asked why everyone was crying. He looked at me in the eye and said, Tia, I'm so sorry. I said, what? What is going on? He said, Tia, Jasmine Hall has committed suicide. My friends had surrounded me, and I heard God's voice clearer than I ever heard before. He said he was there for me and that I was not alone. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a hope and future. God knew the plans he had for me and gave me hope when I felt worthless, and I lost a friend. And the last story is about a story you guys have probably already heard from Chris, but I wanted to share it again. I was in my science class, and my teacher had walked around asking everybody what they wanted to be when they were older. Some kids said construction worker, nurse, doctor, and when it came to me, I said I wanted to be a pastor. I heard a kid on my left named Igor start laughing, and I looked over to ask why it was funny. He said, because girls can't be pastors. I said, why not? He said, because God isn't real. Why would you spend your time on something that isn't real? I said, well, I believe God is real. He stood up in his chair, crossed his arms, and yelled so the whole class could hear it. He said, God is not real. I know this because if God was real, he wouldn't let my dad kill my mom and then kill himself in front of me. Then I get sent up for adoption and get beaten almost to death for the first family I get. So that's how I know God is not real. My teacher came around and told us to stop talking because it was off topic. After class had ended, I asked if he was okay. He said he was fine, but there was nothing I could do to draw him closer to God. God, on a Thursday, had told me to invite him to my CSU meeting, that I invite kids my age to learn about God on Wednesdays. Thursday, he said no. Friday, he said no. Monday, he said no. Tuesday, he said no. And Wednesday, the day of the CSU meeting, he walked up to me first thing and said, fine, Tia, I'll go to your dumb CSU meeting if you just be quiet. And those words. So at the meeting, I had talked about building a relationship with God and that God wasn't the reason for the things that happen on this earth. Later, I watched as he left halfway through. After the class had ended, he had walked up to me and said, Tia, I know you've noticed that I left halfway through, but it wasn't because I didn't like your sermon. It was because God was trying to speak to me and I didn't know how to respond. I handed him a Bible and told him to keep fighting. I saw in science as he was reading the Bible. He showed up to my next 3 CSU meetings and invited his friend to come along with him. What God had told me from this was that people who are hurting just need to hear of God. Philippians 4:18, God will provide. God provided a new life for Igor and his friend. I didn't think I was getting anywhere, and I didn't tell you these stories for you to feel bad for me, but to show you proof of what God can do. He can do many things for your life if you just accept him. If I were to just give up and say, the one person that I needed, the one person that was supposed to love me, has left my life, I can't continue, I would still be sitting at the ground thinking this is it. If I had said, nope, Jasmine Ho had left me, she committed suicide, and I trusted her as a friend, I can't continue, I wouldn't be standing here with this mic in my hand today. If I said, nope, Igor doesn't even want God, why do I keep fighting for him? Then Igor and his friend wouldn't be saved. Maybe you're saying today, hey, you have all these stories, but I don't have a story. Just wait. Philippians 4:19 again, God will provide. No matter what you're going through, no matter what circumstance, no matter what challenges you might be facing, God will provide. Don't let the things of this world keep you from what God has for you. God will carry you through every storm in your life and give you the strength to make it. This life is a battle, and the only way to win is through God. God sent his son down to die so that we could be free. Don't take it for granted. Use it. God says you are loved when you don't feel a thing. God says you are strong when you think you're weak.